So, the top news for today in the UK is this. From the Sun newspaper, no cigarettes and alcohol. Obviously a joke in reference to the Oasis song of the same name. It's by Jack Elsom, and it is pertaining to a government leaked document which the Sun is covering today. And its aim is to promote smoking bans outside of certain places and venues within the UK. Obviously, there is already a smoking ban within public buildings, public places, places of work, etc. So this is effectively taking the smoking ban to the next level, which is causing quite an outrage in today's press. Now, I can't obviously give you a screenshot of the article. I'm not sure if it's actually illegal or not, but it's probably against some kind of guidelines. But anyway, so it says, smoking to be banned from pub gardens, leaked government plans reveal. Lighting up will also be outlawed outside football stadiums and nightclubs, on restaurant terraces and even in small parks. The controversial clampdown is part of a drastically toughened up legislation to phase out smoking. So it has done the rounds recently, has it? Certainly within Labour camps, Sir Kier Starmer, the current Prime Minister of the UK, has talked about this and I believe talked about banning smoking from a certain age. So let's not misquote then. Let's actually quote directly from the Sun, and then afterwards we'll look at some reactions, mixed reactions in the press, mixed reactions online. I will then give my opinion, and then hopefully you guys can give your opinion too. So let's get into it then. So this is the page 4 and 5 spread. I know we're very, very technical on this channel. You wouldn't even know that I'm just starting out as a YouTuber and I have no clue whatsoever. You wouldn't guess that I'm not very professional. So anyway, so Jack is the Sun's chief political correspondent, and he says that an outdoor cigarette ban will effectively be a hammer blow to a lot of failing pubs and venues that are especially in the summer when they're trying to pack out their beer gardens. So Kier Starmer will spark huge controversy and claims of nannyism when the plans are unveiled as part of the Tougher Tobacco and Vapes Bill. Secret Whitehall papers seen by the Sun show ministers plotting to drastically extend the indoor smoking ban to beer gardens and outside football stadiums. It will also apply outside of universities, hospitals, sports grounds, kids' play areas and small parks. Also, lighting up will be stubbed out at outdoor restaurants, open-air spaces at clubs and pavements next to both. But restrictions will not cover private homes nor large open spaces such as parks or streets. The bill was initially designed to implement Rishi Sunak's plan, which is the Prime Minister of the former Conservative government, to phase out all smoking, but it has not made no mention of an outdoor ban, and which, when unveiled at the King's speech 6 weeks ago. The Sun goes on to say that ministers have been trying to toughen outdoor plans, mainly because of secondhand smoke and obviously, the ability for other people in said area or vicinity of a person smoking to then breathe in that secondhand smoke for health reasons. The move has sparked cabinet tensions, with memos showing business department fearing financial costs to hospitality. A recent impact assessment concluded that banning outdoor smoking will lead to closures and job losses. However, the Prime Minister has resolved to press ahead with the outdoor ban with the backing of England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty. So another reason is that they're claiming that smoking costs the Treasury an estimated £21.8 billion in health spending, dwarfing the amount that it raises in tax. I mean, that whole issue with tax has always been an argument for pro-smokers for quite a while. I've known personally smokers that have insisted that paying for cigarettes pays for the NHS. I mean, perhaps in the old days, but obviously these days with the dwindling number of smokers, I don't know whether that's a fact at the moment in 2024. Downing Street will also point out when the former Prime Minister Tony Blair's Labour government introduced a public smoking ban in 2007, which actually did not hurt businesses but save lives. An outdoor ban will still be viewed as an immensely radical move by Sir Kier just weeks after he won the general election. The paper then goes to point out that there will be a consultation period, and it also says that grey areas that will still appear to be under discussion include beaches and enclosed parks that bunch lots of people into small spaces. One option is to have them differentiated between big open spaces and smaller, densely populated areas. The plans are also mentioning vape-free areas, but it's unclear if an outdoor ban will extend to vapes and e-cigarettes. So to get a bit of perspective then, we have the Sun has effectively two pundits, two separate people, and they're going to give their views. So this is the positive view then. It's by Lizzie Parry, who is the head of health. And she says, smoking kills more people than obesity, alcohol, drugs and lack of exercise combined. Most deaths are down to lung cancer and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and heart disease. But it was also linked to cancer of the lip, mouth, throat, kidney, bladder, stomach and liver. And it's not just your health that's affected. Inhaling secondhand smoke has been linked to a greater risk of heart disease, lung and breast cancers, strokes, dementia and asthma in non-smokers. Anything that helps create a world that protects children and young people from the harms of smoking is a no-brainer for me. I'm old enough to remember nights out before the smoking ban when it was normal to go home stinking of smoke, when your clothes were ruined by fag burns. Fag is the British slang word for cigarette. Don't hate me, please don't send any comments. That is what the slang in the UK for a cigarette. Maybe in 10 years the idea of smoking in public would just be a horrible memory. Younger generations will thank us. And so the no argument then comes from Sean Custis, who is the Sun's head of sport. He says, I need a fag just to calm down during the latest clampdown from the government zealots, and I haven't had one for a month. I'm one of those occasional smokers that likes a cig in the backyard of a pub on a Friday night after a couple of pints, but rarely goes near them otherwise. Yes, I know that no fags are better, but give me a break. At least it's not a double cheeseburger and fries. Let's be honest, that's probably something I'm more guilty of than the cigarettes, which is in no doubt on the next list on the health police. The argument goes, the ban on smoking inside pubs didn't kill the trade, but being able to pop outside for a drag saved the day. Now, if you can't even do that, it will be no time to stay at home and invite your mates round for a nip out to the patio until they stop you doing that on your own land. And, as drinking is bad for you, we're not far off an alcohol ban in pubs too. In this world of utter madness, it's insane. Has anyone got a light, he says. Right, so that's the article itself done. So, what are the reactions? Let's go on to X, formerly Twitter, and find out. So, Reem Ibrahim says, this is mental, and then quotes what the Sun has said. Charlotte the Baroness says, according to leaked government documents, smoking is to be banned, and then cites the pub gardens, outside clubs, restaurants, etc. Whether you condone it or not, this is a step too far, Charlotte says. Too much too soon at the very least. Kira Connolly has said that it looks like the UK are trying to appease the Muslim community. No cigarettes and alcohol. The Sun leaks a leaked document. Banned from pub gardens, outside stadiums and in parks and government plans. And down the road. No cigarettes and alcohol anywhere. Not sure how that goes the other way around, but I'm sure you guys will tell me in the comments. I have no idea what that's got to do with Islam, but hey, let me know. Jeremy Vine. Jeremy Vine is a media personality and journalist. He has a talk show or has a morning show on, I believe it used to be Channel 5, so correct me if I'm wrong. He also works for the BBC, so he is a well-known journalist in the UK. He says, talk about nanny state. Stop sucking the joy out of life. The government is considering banning people from smoking in pub gardens, outside restaurants and some parks. Ellie Henman isn't keen on the idea, while Kevin Maguire says it will help tackle the scourge of nicotine addiction. Sorry, I didn't get the last bit there. Yes, so it's interesting, isn't it? So the talk of nanny state. What is a nanny state? So the nanny state, it comes up in English politics quite a lot, and it is a government that tries to give too much advice or make too many laws about how people should live their lives, especially about eating, smoking or drinking alcohol. The government was accused of trying to create a nanny state when it announced new guidelines on healthy eating. So yeah, in this country they say it a lot, where it's when the government tries to encroach on your freedom and your personal life too much, whether that be by trying to control what you do, or, you know, perhaps it will put in place laws that will force you, rather than giving you a choice, it will force you to abide by a certain set of laws and restrictions, if you like. And what they're saying effectively, of course, is smoking is unhealthy. What they also trying to do, for example, I'll give you some other things that have happened in the UK, which is there is a sugar tax now on certain items, which means that the items cost more for you to buy. The incentive, of course, is to try and price them so that they're a bit more expensive, so you think twice before eating them, and then becoming obese like me, and then possibly a future drain on the NHS, or even having health issues yourself. And the other things would be, for example, alcohol as well, and cigarettes and alcohol. Funnily enough, I know we keep going back to the Oasis song. Oasis being also in the news for reforming and going on tour again next year. Cigarettes and alcohol were always the two demons, if you like, of taxes, where they would always add an extra tax on. And a lot of the time it wouldn't be challenged as much because it was deemed to be unhealthy anyway, so people would be like, I guess a lot of people are asking, is this going to go any further? Is this right, first of all? And secondly, is it going to go any further? There are some other people, let's say, who have their views, so let's find out something. So Reform UK have also given their view. Now, Reform UK are a political party in the United Kingdom. They are right-wing. They believe in banning immigration. They're kind of like the Conservatives, but even further right-wing. They say Kier Starmer's outdoor smoking ban would be last orders of a traditional British pub. Reform will fight any nanny state legislations and bring the joy back to Britain. And that was published in the Daily Telegraph with a nice picture there of Nigel Farage, who is the head of the Reform Party and is, I believe, an MP for Clacton-on-Sea. So back to the feed then. Somebody called Pontius Old Mum, apologies if I pronounced that wrong, says creeping authoritarianism or protest freedoms. Discuss. Yes, so anyway, there's mainly it's just users' opinions now. There's no one else physically in the press that I can find. So let's go to the press coverage then of what's happening. So this is from Sky News, which is obviously a premier news agency in the UK. And I'll show you how unprofessional I am now. I'm actually going to turn my lighting up slightly during the video, so that's how bad I am at the moment. So, and it's only because I'm just starting out on YouTube, so apologies for my my poor setup. Sky, this is what they report 2 hours ago. We've got to take action. The PM teases the outdoor smoking ban to come. So Kier Starmer has refused, the Prime Minister, has refused to deny reports that his government is considering banning smoking in some outdoor spaces like pub gardens. We're going to take decisions in this space. More details will be revealed, he said. He described smoking as a preventable cause of death and said we've got to take action to reduce the burden on the NHS. My starting point is to remind everyone that over 80,000 people lose their lives each year due to smoking, and this is a preventable death. It's a huge burden on the NHS and, of course, the taxpayer. Yes, we are going to take decisions in this space. So there you go, from the man himself. But let's actually hear from him himself. Let's hear from his very words.
Starting point on this is to remind everyone that over 80,000 people lose their lives every year because of smoking. That's a preventable death. It's a huge burden on the NHS, and of course it's a burden on the taxpayer. So yes, we are going to take decisions in this space. More details will be revealed, but this is a preventable series of deaths, and we've got to take the action to reduce the burden on the NHS and reduce the burden on the taxpayer.
You said when you became Prime Minister you wanted politics to tread more lightly on people's lives. This is the opposite, isn't it?
Look, I think it's important to get the balance right, but everybody watching this who uses the NHS will know that it's on its knees. We have to relieve the burden, and that's why I spoke before the election about moving to a preventative model when it comes to health. I want the NHS back on its feet, but I also want it fit for the next, 75 years, just as we've had a brilliant 75 years already. And that means taking action in relation to preventable deaths, and these are 80,000 a year preventable deaths.
So the BBC have said much the same. There's a similar interview. It also says that the King's speech at the state opening of Parliament last month promised to reintroduce legislation proposed by the previous government, which would have outlawed the sale of tobacco to anyone born on or after January of 2009. It'll be unclear whether any ban would be UK-wide or just apply in England, and though devolved governments would, of course, choose to bring in similar rules. So that is a bit of thing to unpack there. So the first thing is they are saying that it's going to soon be if this, one of the things they've been talking about is for it to be illegal for anybody to effectively be able to buy cigarettes from who were born after January 2009. The whole point is that it's supposed to stop, or I don't know if you call it de-escalation is the wrong word, but its whole idea is to stop children smoking from here forever onwards. The whole idea is obviously that the population moving forward with age would mean that actually none of them, eventually all the oldies would die out and no one else would actually be able to buy tobacco anymore, or cigarettes. And I think it also applies to vaping and e-cigarettes too. I could be wrong. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because effectively we're witnessing the possible future death of tobacco companies unless they diversify into other areas. Obviously, vaping was an obvious one, but maybe they'll have to go into other things. And it is quite an interesting thing because I remember back in the 80s, tobacco companies were huge. They had huge influence. They were able to advertise on television, sporting events and such. It was massive. It was a lot different than it is now. I believe that might be right. I may be wrong on the advertising on TV, but they definitely did on sporting events like Formula One, for example. The second thing I think is clear to unpack here as well is the whole thing about whether it's going to be UK-wide or not. Obviously, there is a UK government, which is a Labour government at the moment, which is a left-wing government. It's what they keep calling it a broad church. Effectively, it goes from a bit further to the left, generally up to the centre, so centre-left roughly, of which the Prime Minister, Sir Kier Starmer, his politics generally, from what I understand, are more centre-left. But that is a government obviously for the whole of the UK, but they don't necessarily pass laws that affect all of the UK countries. For example, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have devolved governments, local governments too. And with the UK, obviously, they sometimes it's not right to pass a law that affects the whole of the UK blanketly. It doesn't make sense. Each government has a right to, and in some cases, it might be that, let's say, the Scottish government may actually go even harder, possibly, than the English government, or less harsh. It's hard to know. But effectively, whether it will be a whole national or whether it will be local decision, who knows? I guess this is what they're asking. So there you go. So there's several things to unpack, isn't there, really? First of all, there's the safety aspect. That's why they're doing it. Secondly, is this nanny state issue. And thirdly, it's kind of like, how much further are they going to go? What else are they going to ban, or what else could they ban in the future? And it's kind of a divisive issue, isn't it? Like everything in 2024, let's face it, it's a divisive issue. So let's get to where do I stand on it. I'll be honest, I think it's a good thing. And I know, hate me, shoot me in the comments. I think it's a good thing. It's a difficult one, of course. Individual freedoms generally should be preserved, of course, goes without saying. That's just obvious, but at the same time, there's always this line of where does a person's freedom then impact or hurt or detriment other people. There's always this line sometimes, I feel. And with smoking especially, it's kind of like, well, obviously, secondhand smoke is an issue. It affects my health if you are smoking next to me. You have the choice whether to smoke, but then I also have the choice whether to breathe in your smoke and obviously, have that secondhand smoke. Now, the obvious answer is, well, go outside, and people say, well, I'll go outside and smoke. I think that's good. There's no smoking internally anymore. And, what a difference it made to pubs and things when there was no smoke, as someone alluded to about on that Twitter feed about, no, it wasn't Twitter feed, was it? Apologies, it was The Sun. It was the first pro-ban sentiment in The Sun, wasn't it? Where they were saying about how they used to come back from nightclubs and pubs and have the cigarette smoke. And it's true, your clothes used to stink of cigarette smoke. And people always used to ask the question, we're inhaling that in our lungs. What damage has that done? Anyway. my point is, going outside, yeah, okay, it's a line, isn't it? And I think going outside there isn't a problem with that, and people aren't going to, they're not arguing that in the government. What they're kind of trying to say, I think, is it's in a public place. For example, I'll give you an example. The other night I went to my local Asda shopping supermarket. I went in to buy some groceries, and I didn't even know. I just breathe normally, as I normally do, obviously, to survive. And next thing I know, I'm inhaling cigarette smoke. I'm like, what the? Who's near me smoking? And it was just a guy there out, a random old guy just smoking, and of course he did it outside of the building. He didn't move away. He didn't move to a space away from the building or, away from the entrance. He stood at the entrance, smoking. Now that was inconsiderate of him, of course, but he didn't. It's not like he went out of his way probably to hurt anyone. He just didn't even think, and it happens. But yeah, I was not a bit annoyed. I was a bit annoyed that I gulped a thing of air or whatever, but I just went into the supermarket. Everything was fine. Funnily enough, at the hospital as well, I went to the hospital 2 weeks ago to take my mum to the hospital, and again, similar situation. It actually said no smoking outside of the entrance or on our hospital grounds at all. Hence the sign like that. And yet, people were outside the entrance smoking. And again, I'm like, come out, I can't breathe. Someone's just blown a plume of smoke, in the air right next to my face. Absolute nightmare. So at the same time, it's a bit different. That chap who was negative in the Sun was very much like, oh, well, it's like, what's next? Eating cheeseburgers. Eating cheeseburgers only affects you. That's the key difference. Secondhand smoke affects everybody who's in the vicinity. And they're not saying that, you're not going to be able to smoke outside. They're saying you're not going to be able to smoke outside of entrances, places where people are eating, outside in the garden, people get together. The pubs only have a limited space on their venue site. So effectively, other customers are going to be out there too. And when you're eating at a restaurant, the last thing you want is to inhale somebody's smoke when you're eating. It's disgusting. And I don't think anyone on this planet will argue that cigarettes aren't disgusting. They aren't horrible. Of course they are. Then you may like the effect when you smoke it, but it's still disgusting, the ash and everything else. But at the same time, I understand people who are arguing that people's freedoms in the nanny state, I get it, you don't want the government to intrude, as long as you're not breaking the law. And, I understand their point of view. I have sympathy. Not empathy, obviously, because I'm not a smoker, but sympathy for them. So yeah, it's a tough one. Is something I think you have to judge it based on its individual merit rather than judging it based on, is it the nanny state? Ooh, is this 90? And people always quote 1984, often misquote 1984, and sometimes it's clear people have not read the book. But we'll see. But you have to do it on a case-by-case basis. If they start legislating, for example, more about sugar and fast food and things like that, yes, okay, that affects me personally. Am I selfish? Yeah, okay, I'm selfish. I admit it. Because this doesn't affect me apart from only in the positive, I'm all for it. Call me selfish. Hey, that's what people vote governments in, for selfish reasons. For me, it's selfish. Hey, that's it. It's selfish reasons. So let's move on then. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, be nice to each other. It's just an opinion. No need to insult anybody. But yeah, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know. What do you think? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you completely disagree with what I've said? Or do you agree with what I've said and, you want to hear more? And as always, please like and subscribe. Love you guys. See you on my next video.